Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Democratic Newsroom. This time our crack team of editors have got together to debate a rather unfortunate story. Because as the Waqf Bill was being passed in Parliament and then of course consecutively became a law, riots broke out in Murshidabad, West Bengal. The TMC government has blamed the BJP as well as central agencies like the BSF, suggesting that they colluded and fanned the riot fires. The BJP clearly has looked at the TMC and suggesting that this is all appeasement. Mamata Banerjee not even talking to the Hindu families who've been targeted in this violence, but continuing to appease a particular community. So who fanned the riot flame? Let's take it to our band of editors this evening. Joining me, Gaurav Sawant, right here with me, Akshata Nandgopal, Kamlesh, as well as we have a guest from Mumbai, Sahil Joshi. Gaurav, you know, you've been looking at all the debates that took place in Parliament where the Waqf Bill was being discussed. Days after that, there was, an uneasy calm where violence was expected in various parts of India. It didn't quite happen anywhere else. But Murshidabad, already, fires were simmering there post because it colluded with Ram Navami. And then riots broke out. How do you gauge the situation?
So the situation was extremely grim. The fact that Bangladesh or elements from Bangladesh and central forces were being blamed, was this deflection tactics? Because look at the people who've been taken into custody. Kalu Mehtab, Didar Mehtab and an Inzamamul Haq. They're all locals who've been taken into custody. Are we to believe that elements came from outside, from Bangladesh, as Bengal leaders seem to put it, that they were aided and abetted by the BSF to come into India and then specifically target Hindu homes, go and kill a 70-year-old Ma Durga and Ma Saraswati idol maker Har Gobind Das, who's 70, and his son Chandan Das, who's 40. So this clearly doesn't add up, because some say that they were cadre or workers of a particular political party, and that was one of the reasons why they were targeted. So were these targeted killings? Then the BJP has gone on record to say that mosque loudspeakers were used for sloganeering, and that led to people coming out and then targeting Hindus. God forbid if that is true, then it's very dangerous, because India has lived through it. We've lived through 1990 when we saw Ralev, Galev ya Salev in Kashmir, where mosque loudspeakers were used and Hindus were thrown out of Kashmir. Okay. God forbid that should never happen in Bengal.
All right, to give our viewers perspective, there are 3 dead, hundreds of refugees right now in Murshidabad. Some of them, of course, have made their way back to Murshidabad. As I speak, the governor, Ananda Bose, is on his way to Murshidabad. So lots happening politically where political commentary is concerned. Sahil, Sahil does the debate show at 5 p.m. Dangal on Aaj Tak, and today, and this has been one of your main topics of debate. Of How do you view the current developments, Sahil? Who fanned the riot flame in Murshidabad?
Well, interestingly, when the debate started about Waqf Board, the Waqf Amendment Bill, it was never Hindu versus Muslim. It suddenly became a Hindu versus Muslim when the riots happened in Bengal. It's what I can see clearly. Secondly, even during the debate in the parliament, it was very interesting to see that suddenly Kiran Rijiju specifically, when the Shiv Sena UBT leader Arvind Sawant was defending opposition stand to oppose the Waqf Amendment Bill, he suddenly came out and said, you're forgetting what Balasaheb Thackeray has done as a leader of Hindutva. Similarly, situation what we saw in Rajya Sabha when Praful Patel also tried to rake up the same issue. So the whole debate turned into a Hindu versus Muslim, when the government stand has always been that this bill will actually bring in a good faith for the Muslims, for the betterment of the Muslims, to create the educational and healthcare institutes for the Muslims, which was original idea of the Waqf properties, which was not being done. But now it has turned into a completely Hindu versus Muslim debate. And that is where I think it started derailing the whole conversation. And it looked like the Supreme Court has clearly pointed out 3 issues which are actually very core at the heart of this particular debate. And it looks like now that what happened in Bengal, in Murshidabad, it has given a chance to create that kind of atmosphere again. And I think that We will see that more on after 7 days when there will be another debate, or the kind of arguments will be put by.
Okay. So you're saying there's of course a correlation with what's happening right now in Supreme Court, where the Waqf petitions are being heard, and what happened yesterday. But we're going to try and focus also primarily on West Bengal. But Kamlesh, it was always about Hindu and Muslims. Clearly, it wasn't about Hindu and Muslims when the debates were going on. But ultimately, it wasn't supposed to be that, but it was about Hindu and Muslims. And that's what the rhetoric became, especially in cities and smaller towns where, where division is very clear. So were you surprised with what happened, in Murshidabad? And were you surprised that how the politics has played out ever since, with the BJP and the TMC going at each other, where appeasement is concerned?
Not at all.
Not surprised?
Not surprised. See, the answer to your question we'll get after the investigation is done, the results of which we will not trust, because the extreme polarization in our politics. What worries me, or should worry everyone, is that that area, because of unchecked infiltration over decades, has led to a demographic shift, that it has become a powder keg now. So it can be a Waqf board judgment or the act, but before that there was CA, NRC, there can be something about Palestine, it can be even a book burning in Denmark. If you have a situation where there has been a demographic shift, a palpable one, 15% since, the share of one community has risen by 15% since independence, you will end up in a situation which is always tense, under control, but tense.
Uneasy calm.
Uneasy.
Uneasy calm is what you define it. But I want to also bring in Jitendra Bahadur Singh, who's been tracking the story also very closely with us, because there are multiple probes right now that are taking place. One, of course, the central regulated probe. Then there is, Jitendra, a probe which is going on at, the West Bengal government probe. कैसे देखते हैं, किसने किया, क्या हुआ?
देखिए, अभी तक जो रिपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के पास, जो खुफिया एजेंसीज़ की रिपोर्ट आ रही है, इसके साथ साथ बॉर्डर पर जो है वो बीएसएफ है। बीएसएफ की भी इंट ब्रांच जो है वो लगातार इस बात को लेकर के जांच कर रही है। सवाल यही उठ रहा है, जिस तरीके से जो इनिशियल रिपोर्ट आई है उसमें ये जानकारी मिली है कि जो बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठिए हैं उनका हाथ है, लेकिन ये बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठिए अचानक उस समय नहीं आए जब पूरी हिंसा हुई। इसके बारे में ये पता चल रहा है कि ये 2-3 महीने पहले से इस तरीके का प्लान चल रहा था। जब बांग्लादेश की स्थिति खराब हुई, उस दौरान जो है उनकी जेलों से बहुत सारे रेडिकल एलिमेंट्स, जो रेडिकल ग्रुप से जुड़े हुए लोग हैं, वो वहाँ से फरार हुए। उन लोगों ने कुछ ऐसे इलाके जहाँ पर नदी नाले हैं वहाँ से घुसपैठ किया, ऐसी रिपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं। उसमें अंसारुल बांग्लादेश जो है, इसके साथ साथ जमातुल मुजाहिदीन बांग्लादेश, जमात से जुड़े हुए लोग, इन लोगों के जो स्लीपर सेल्स हैं उनको उकसाया। और आपने देखा पूरा कि जो रिपोर्ट्स आई हैं उसमें जो लोग वहाँ पर पत्थरबाजी कर रहे हैं, जिनकी तस्वीरें आ रही हैं, वो 12 से 25 साल के लोग हैं। तो इनको किस तरीके से रेडिकलाइज किया गया, इन तमाम चीज़ों की छानबीन की जा रही है। हालांकि हाई कोर्ट की तरफ से कहा गया कि हमें एनआईए जांच के आदेश देने का वो अपनी तरफ से उसने नहीं कहा, लेकिन केंद्र सरकार के पास ऐसा पावर है, वो एनआईए जांच अगर कराना चाहेगी तो दे सकती है। तो सोर्सेज यही बताते हैं कि कुछ दिनों में एनआईए जांच वहाँ पर जा सकती है। और एक ये बड़ा जो प्लानिंग हुई है, उस प्लानिंग को पूरी तरीके से एनआईए ही इसको देख सकती, क्योंकि इससे पहले चाहे असम में हुआ हो एबीटी से रिलेटेड जांच, उसकी जांच एनआईए ने किया है। इसके साथ ही जमातुल मुजाहिदीन बांग्लादेश के जो एलिमेंट्स अलग अलग जगहों पर रहे हैं, उनकी जांच एनआईए की तरफ से किया गया। तो एनआईए अगर इसको देखेगी पूरी तरीके से तो लगता है कि पूरा पिक्चर क्लियर होगी कि किस तरीके से
बांग्लादेशी इन्फिल्ट्रेटर्स की जो आप बात कर रहे हैं, वो दोनों जो स्टेट प्रोब है, जो वेस्ट बंगाल पुलिस ने प्रोब की है, वो भी यही कह रहा है, और जो सेंट्रल की जो रिपोर्ट है वो भी यही कह रही है, जो बीएसएफ। तो दोनों एटलीस्ट इस मान्य में एक साथ हैं कि ये पूरा कराया बांग्लादेशी इन्फिल्ट्रेटर्स का।
बिल्कुल, जो हाई कोर्ट में रिपोर्ट, स्टेटस रिपोर्ट दी गई है राज्य सरकार की पुलिस की तरफ से, उसमें भी उनकी तरफ से कहा गया कि घुसपैठियों की वजह से ये हुआ और उन्होंने हिंदुओं को टारगेट किया, इस तरीके की बात उसमें कही गई। तो दोनों रिपोर्ट्स लगभग मिल रही हैं। तो
Akshita, I want to get you in because what's really interesting is usually the TMC and the BJP are at loggerheads, the centre and the government of West Bengal are at loggerheads. At least on how the riot was instigated and started, they are on the same page on that. But lots of politics around it, lots of questions around it, where of course the TMC says that the BJP is the one who, after the riots began, were fanning the flames of the riot, where its leaders openly inciting violence. The BJP, on the other hand, suggesting that, listen, Mamata Banerjee did not even go and meet the victims of the violence, and she was still, in talks with the imams. So, giving the appeasement angle there. One would think that, that this is all politics, but then again, it gets fueled. And in my view, what I feel is it gets fueled with the fact that you have the governor of West Bengal who's going to be taking a train and go to Murshidabad, while, say, in a Sambal, where there were similar riots, you didn't have the governor of Uttar Pradesh go there. So that gives the TMC that extra fodder to attack the BJP with. Of course, with what Sukanta Mazumdar said on ground, where he said, beat up anyone that you see on the road. So lots of politics as well.
That's the governor's choice, governor of Bengal versus governor of UP, how they choose to respond to any of these crisis situations. We can make it political all we want, but I'll just put it on one point here, which is that when Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee met with these imams yesterday, what was the message that she put out? It wasn't of, kind of calming the situation. You then went ahead and blamed everyone around. At no point did you say that, look, the state government should have taken more responsibility. At no point did she say that I will visit these victims. I feel sorry for what's happened. None of that. She blamed the BSF. She blamed the centre. She blamed the Home Minister. She blamed the Godi media, as she put it. Everyone but the state. And so what does that do? That sets a precedent. It sends a message that the government simply doesn't take this issue seriously. And how can you expect then that the state will be able to weed out whatever elements were that made these riots actually happen, that instigated these riots? On the other issue that Jitendra mentioned about Bangladeshi infiltration, I think the challenge in Bengal has become this, that most of these infiltrators are no longer infiltrators. They've got Aadhaar cards. They roam around just as with all the rights that every citizen that you and me have. And so how do you define who is a Bengali, who is an Indian, who is a Bangladeshi now? That, that line is blurred now.
And that's a larger debate, which is not just limited to the centre. But Gaurav, would you want to come and weigh in on what, Akshita said?
Look, what's happening in Bengal is clearly being seen as appeasement politics on either side in the run-up to elections that will take place. So, is this just preparing the grounds? Murshidabad, anyway, as Kamlesh was also mentioning, the demographic profile has changed so much. Hindus are in a minority. Are Hindus specifically then being targeted? And in 1990, nobody raised the voice of Hindus in Kashmir. That's the grouse of Kashmiri Hindus even now. So if somebody is raising a voice that give them justice in 2025, that Murshidabad should not be Kashmir 2.0, then I don't think anybody should grudge the issue being raised. Let there be a free, fair, impartial investigation. Whoever is guilty, punish the guilty. Deflection is not the best idea in this point, because if you truly believe in India first, then whoever is guilty, jail that person irrespective of his religion.
Sahil, it cuts both ways, because let's just go back to the recent incidents where the West Bengal government had found themselves on the back foot. The last one was the RG Kaur hospital, the rape, where everybody went after the TMC saying gang rape, sat there, did nothing. So yes, again, the West Bengal government was on complete defensive, blaming the media, blaming the BJP. But ultimately, in the end, the cops, West Bengal cops, were right, if you look at it and how it all started. Let's just go back to Sandesh Khali. Sandesh Khali, again, there was so much. The same playbook was there. There was so much made out again, suggesting that this is what the West Bengal government has, done absolutely nothing. Thousands to hundreds were said were rape victims in that. Ultimately, that number came down to 18. And now, as we speak, of the 18, many have taken back their cases as well. So the West Bengal government at one end, of course, doesn't want to take any responsibility, and it's happened earlier because, they just feel that they're doing the right thing. But on the other hand, there are incidents to go by which seem to suggest that why they're on the kind of aggressiveness and the defensiveness that they're at.
Well, I can say only one thing. I've seen riots in Mumbai when I was not even a journalist. But my experience as a journalist I can tell you one thing: if the police decides that there will not be riots, you will never see a riot there. During 1992, there were no riots in Bihar because the government decided that they will not allow any riots to happen. But whereas in Mumbai, which had nothing to do with the whole Rath Yatra and what happened in Ayodhya. Still, Mumbai had massive riots which actually changed the whole political situation in Maharashtra. Similarly, there are two ways you look at that. Like Kamlesh was mentioning, the demography has changed in Murshidabad. If you look at the political situation as well, in Murshidabad, the 20 assembly segments, TMC has won, and only 2 places where the BJP has won. And all the 3 Lok Sabha constituencies in Murshidabad district, the TMC is having their member of parliaments. So if you look at the whole situation, the TMC needs to be blamed for what happened in Murshidabad. They could have controlled the riots. There is enough evidence. Even in my show, I saw that there were some speeches being made that what happened in Bangladesh, we will make that happen here in Murshidabad as well, or in India as well. The Chief Minister coming forward and saying that whatever happens, she will not allow Waqf amendment law to be implemented in Bengal. All these things actually fueled everything. But at the same time, there are 2 ways these riots are being looked at. There is a way from the journalist sitting outside Bengal and looking at the situation, and within Bengal, the situation is completely different. According to me, right now, the biggest worry for the government right now is the teacher, the scam which the Supreme Court gave judgment about.
Some of those teachers have now been rehabilitated.
Now have been rehabilitated. Yeah. But in Bengal, that story has been talked about a lot. And that has happened in Kashmir as well. In a lot of times what we have seen that the people sitting in Delhi are looking at a situation in state in a different way, and people sitting inside the state are looking at a situation in a completely different way altogether. So there is a complete mistrust between the state government and the center, and that is where these things are going out of proportion at this point of time. And what has happened is that it has derailed the whole Waqf debate in a way that it has spoiled the whole momentum the opposition tried to build against the Waqf Amendment Bill, and that is where I think the TMC has gone wrong. And what Akshita has pointed out, that is absolutely right. Ideally, she should have gone to the place where this has happened. She should have met the victims, and that gave the chance to the governor to go there. Right now, the situation is completely calm. I don't know what the governor is going to go there and ask about. The TMC
no, but that's politics.
That's politics.
Because then that's
politics.
Is
it politics? I mean, of course,
it is politics.
Permit me, Kamlesh, for a second before she comes to you. There are people who still haven't been able to get back to their homes. There are people who are still living in relief camps. So, their lives have been impacted forever.
Of course, that is state government's responsibility.
And if the chief minister doesn't go, then the governor should
went
go.
wrong.
But in Sambal, why didn't Anandi Patel go? But then if you turn around, is in Sambal, why didn't Anandi Patel go?
You ask her that question. That doesn't mean that
but it's the same.
Somebody is making a decision about the governor.
I don't get why we're comparing the two.
No, the fact is...
Why are we comparing the two? One governor
because
versus
they're both
another.
governors.
She had all the right to go. Nobody stopped her, right?
That's where
now,
the politics comes in.
If she went,
that's why
if she went, we can't be like, okay, no, why did she go? We can't say that. We say she had all the right to go. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying the governor has very much a right to go.
That's where the
there are some Hindus who still haven't been able to return to their home.
You have to see one thing.
Either they're living
there are
in
some
relief
places
camps.
where the governor chooses to be passive. There are certain places where the
100%,
governor decides to be
100%,
active.
but either
And
way-
you can clearly identify the difference.
Exactly.
Having said that, I agree with the point that the state government is at the fault. The chief minister should have gone there.
The government was caught napping. There's no two ways about it.
Government was caught
Was the government caught napping with so much, police deployment? Police could have done,
They were
could
seeing
have
it,
prevented.
actually.
That's point one. Point two, the story may be over or it may be politics for some. Hindus haven't been able to return to their homes. Some are living in Jharkhand, some are living in Malda, unable to go back to Murshidabad. Will they ever be able to go back to Murshidabad? That's an apprehension, and there is a pattern to what's happening. It's been raised even in courts. Permit me, Kamlesh, 30 seconds before she comes to you, if you permit.
Kamlesh is smiling. Take your time.
26 June 2023, Rath Yatra was restricted. Calcutta High Court had to intervene. 26 June 2023, 20th June, Supreme Court said elections are not licensed for violence, and they refused to stay the deployment of central forces. 19th May 2023, Supreme Court declines to stay High Court order transferring Ram Navami violence cases to NIA. So if you see a pattern, this is not politics. This is courts having to intervene to deliver justice in Bengal.
All right, but Gaurav speaks of patterns, and the pattern which I also spoke of with Sahil. The fact is, Kamlesh, Is the West Bengal government at fault? Definitely, because they are completely looking the other way and in denial where their role is concerned in trying to control the violence, because they were point one to do so. But the pattern is they've come out once again throwing punches, blaming the media, blaming the, the government, blaming central forces, is because what has gone down. Right before 2024 elections, the biggest story breaks, which is Sandesh Khali, which could have cost the West Bengal government, quite a number of seats at that point of time, to where everybody ran with stories of how thousands women were raped. That 1,000 number was got down to 100. Ultimately, there were 18. Then, out of the 18, we still don't know the number because most of them have taken back their cases.
Wait for long enough. These houses that were burnt, you will come to know from investigations that they were burnt because of air kisses being exchanged between Hindus and Muslims. That's
exactly
how it will.
So there is a pattern to it, is all I'm saying. That's why the government is acting the way it's acting.
Expecting Mamata Banerjee to visit the area is a little too much because she is a politician. She will not irritate her vote bank while BJP is consolidating its vote bank.
No, that's the tragedy. She's the chief minister.
Not possible. The real tragedy is this area is very sensitive.
Fair point.
Okay, very, very sensitive. You have people, thousands of them, who have no love or loyalty to this land. They are here, they may have Aadhaar card and voter IDs, but they do not belong here.
It is so sad.
And it is called chicken's neck. So you have a problem breathing down that neck. At a time when Muhammad Yunus has clearly said what, China and others, so your enemies
and you know what is equally
want to do with that
distressing?
neck.
Is it entirely the fault of the West Bengal government?
30 seconds. And
I want to go to Jitendra.
Yes, and you can bear me out on that, Jitendra, because you cover Home Ministry. Union Home Minister Amit Shah went on record to say the Bengal government is not giving him land to fence 450 kilometers, I believe.
450 किलोमीटर लैंड को लेकर के कंटिन्यू जो है चीफ सेक्रेटरी और वहाँ के चीफ सेक्रेटरी और होम सेक्रेटरी के बीच में 7 टाइम्स मीटिंग हुई, 10 बार रिमाइंडर्स भेजे गए गृह मंत्रालय की तरफ से, लेकिन एक भी बार उसमें सुनवाई नहीं हुई। सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत यही है कि जो रिवराइन एरिया है वहाँ पर तो फेंसिंग अभी नहीं बनी है होम मिनिस्ट्री की तरफ से, उसमें बनाने में दिक्कत आ रही, लेकिन 450 किलोमीटर कुछ ऐसा प्लेन एरिया जहाँ से 24 परगना या तमाम मुर्शिदाबाद ये एरिया आते हैं, यहाँ फेंसिंग नहीं है कई इलाकों में। तो वहाँ से अगर घुसपैठ होती है, बॉर्डर सिक्योरिटी फोर्स वहाँ पर मौजूद है, लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी अगर वहाँ पर 24 परगना में आधार कार्ड बन रहे हैं, गृह मंत्री अमित शाह ने तो सदन के अंदर बोला है कि आधार कार्ड वहां पर बन रहे हैं, तो इन सबको देखने के लिए जैसे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को देखती है, तो वहां पर अगर उसकी तरफ से कदम नहीं सही तरीके से बढ़ाया जाएगा, आधार कार्ड बन रहे हैं, सेंटर्स कहां खुले हुए हैं, मुर्शिदाबाद में, मालदा में कहां पर हैं, उसके लिए पुलिस ही जिम्मेदार है। पुलिस अगर कदम नहीं बढ़ाएगी तो बीएसएफ और ये
I'm running out of time. The trust deficit is so deep between the central government and the state government that national security is collateral in all of that. I just have about one minute each. 30 seconds.
I'll just say that nothing explains to me and warrants to me any sort of justification on Mamata Banerjee's behavior in this and how she's defended herself. Previous instances, to me, even if Sandesh Khali is raised, it's one version versus another. Even if one woman was brutalized, even if one woman was assaulted, the equal amount of outrage that we had then should be there now.
There's also
but we did talk about each of these. Arjikar also, I'm sorry, did anything change the fact that
nobody is denying that there was failure in governance, but there was a fair amount of politics which fueled the fire. 30
why
seconds.
Should that matter?
Closing. No, it matters because then it just snowballs into something entirely else.
No, it doesn't. It's still a crime. A crime is a crime in either case.
It is whenever the politics gets involved in such kind of riots, it never dies down. Everybody wants to keep the situation flaring up because obviously the elections will be approaching soon, and the more polarization will happen, it will help the TMC as well as it will help the BJP, and that is what it looks like that it is going to happen there. But again, I'm coming back to the same point that what happened in Bengal has actually derailed the whole conversation, what happened inside the parliament. Also, the opposition stand on the Waqf Bill, and that is what it looks like is going to go ahead with.
30 seconds, Kamlesh. Close it.
See, the elections are coming, and I welcome all the politics around it.
It's
both
bound
the
to happen.
parties are free to do whatever they want to do, level allegations, counter allegations, but please do not fiddle with an area that might explode.
Which is at the border.
Where your enemies have their eyes.
All right. जितेंद्र, अब आगे बस 10 सेकंड में अगर आप बताएंगे प्रोब को लेकर, तो क्योंकि ये एक कम्युनल वायलेंस है, पर इसको सरकार एक टेररिज्म एक्टिविटी की तरह ट्रीट कर रही है इस बार, जो केंद्र सरकार है।
देखिए इसमें
क्योंकि
तो
इसीलिए एनआईए
10 सेकंड में आगे की प्रक्रिया ये होगी कि जो पूरा केस है वो एनआईए को दिया जा सकता है। वहाँ से हालांकि हाई कोर्ट की तरफ से कह दिया गया कि अभी वो इस पर कोई एक्ट नहीं करेगा, लेकिन स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कोई इस पर एक्शन नहीं ले रहा है। सेंटर के पास पावर है, वो एनआईए को केस दे सकता है, क्योंकि इससे पहले जो रामनवमी के समय में वायलेंस हुआ था उस समय उसको एनआईए को केस सौंपा गया था। ये कहा जा रहा है कि
तो ये भी एनआईए के पास ही जाएगा।
NIA can take up any case they want.
Yeah, all right.
If I may, just 10 seconds. 10 seconds, Preeti.
Quickly.
The point I want to make is, if the locals there are saying we'll go back to our homes only if central forces are there, that shows a major lack of trust in state police, and that the state police must address immediately.
All right, okay, we've completely run out of time. We're going to leave it at that. Appreciate all our editors who are here together to discuss and debate. We're going to have more issues in days to come, and for our viewers, we leave it for you to decide on what side of this divide you stand on. Thank you for joining us.